They say every mask remembers the breath of its maker. In forgotten rituals and blood-lit carnivals, faces blurred between human and beast. Perhaps the true terror was never the monster, but the man beneath. Tonight, we descend into the oldest deceit, the art of becoming other. You sit before the first fire. It breathes, crackles, sighs, a pulse of orange light against the endless dark. The air is thick with the scent of burning resin and wet stone. You can almost taste the smoke. Sharp, alive, older than memory. Around you, the world is still raw. Forests stretch like dark oceans. The wind carries voices, not human ones, but the long whisper of animals unseen, the distant cracking of ice, the sound of the earth shifting in its sleep. You are not alone, but you are not yet many. There are only small circles of warmth scattered through the dark, each one a fragile heartbeat against the void. They say this was the beginning, not of civilization, but of story. The first myth was not spoken, it was drawn in light. Fire itself became the first storyteller. Watch the flames. See how they move, always searching upward, restless, never content. Every spark a spirit, every flicker a memory trying to escape the body of the wood. Our ancestors must have seen that too, and wondered, what lives inside this living light? Why does it dance like something trying to remember itself? Some believed the fire was a god, a hungry one. They fed it meat, bone, fat. They whispered thanks when it spared their camps, and prayers when it reached too far. The word for holy and the word for burn were once the same. You can almost see them now. The hunters, the gatherers, their faces smeared with ash and ochre. They crouch close, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. They tell stories not with words, but gestures. A hand rising to mimic flame, a low hum to imitate the growl of the night, a trembling breath to mimic the cry of something lost beyond the tree line. When they painted their bodies with ash, it was not just for disguise. It was belief that by wearing the shadow of fire, they could carry its courage. They named their fears aloud so they could see them burn. Wolf, storm, dark, and sometimes a name they would never repeat. A name for the silence itself. The silence, they said, was a thing that listened. Every fire drew its gaze. If you spoke too loudly, too boldly, the silence might answer, and that was a thing no one wanted to hear. Still, the fire gave more than fear. It gave shape to night. It turned beasts into shadows, strangers into kin. It was the first place where we gathered not just to survive, but to remember and to forget. Somewhere in those early nights, story was born. Not as entertainment, but as a map through the dark. When they spoke of the mountain that moved, or the woman made of wind, it was not fantasy. It was instruction. The myth was a mirror of danger, of awe, of warning. It was how memory learned to breathe. You imagine the first storyteller. A woman, perhaps, or a man with eyes clouded by age. They sit close to the embers, voice low, the others leaning in. The smoke twists above them like a ghost learning to dance. And in that voice, in that breath between words, something ancient begins to stir. It is the rhythm that will carry through millennia, into temples, theaters, chapels, and screens. The heartbeat of myth. Born here, beside this trembling light, you feel the pull of it. Even now, thousands of generations later, you understand. The way the dark still feels alive when the fire dies. The way silence waits, as if expecting you to speak its name again. Across the centuries, every culture kept that same secret flame. In Egypt, priests lit eternal fires for Ra's journey through the underworld. In Greece, hearth fires never went out. The goddess Hestia, watching each flicker like a mother tending her child. In the Arctic, the Inuit spoke of a Ningen, the moon man who chased the sun woman across the sky, their dance reflected in every flicker of flame. And in Japan, the fire festivals burned to honor the spirits of the mountains, a promise that no ember would ever die alone. Always it was the same belief, that fire was not just warmth. It was presence, a thin doorway between the living and whatever waited beyond. You wonder now if the masks we wear, the myths we tell, all began here, in that trembling orange glow. If the first time we told stories of gods and beasts, it was not to imagine power, but to understand our own reflection in the flames. The smoke moves like breath, curling around your face, soft and strange. You see shapes in it, faces, animals, memories not your own. You blink, and they dissolve. You blink again, and they return, just for a heartbeat longer. You cannot tell if the fire is showing you something, or if your mind is creating ghosts to fill the waiting dark. The wind shifts. A low hum builds in the air, the sound of night insects, of roots shifting beneath the soil, of something unseen circling just beyond the firelight. The hunters grow quiet. The flames lean one way, as if listening, and you realize this is the moment the first story was born. A spark of fear, a whisper, a reaching hand toward the unknown. No one remembers what was said. Only that something answered. A rustle in the trees, a face seen and forgotten, a name burned into ash and scattered to the wind. The next morning, they buried the coals beneath the earth. They left a mark, a ring of stones blackened by what once lived there, and they moved on, carrying that small warmth within them. The memory of light, the echo of something listening. You sit with that thought now, that all of this, every city and story, every god and grief began with a single circle of fire and bone, that somewhere inside the crackle of every flame, there is still that same voice waiting to be heard again. The night deepens, the last ember fades, pulsing once, then twice, before it disappears into its own shadow. The dark feels close now, breathing softly against your skin. You exhale. The smoke carries your breath into the sky, where it joins the stars. Tiny, eternal fires scattered across the endless black. And you understand, without words, what the first storytellers must have known, that the fire never truly dies. It only moves into the hearts of those who remember. You enter the temple at dusk. The air is warm and heavy, thick with the smell of oil and baked clay, of incense burned too long. Columns rise like stone trees around you, their roots buried in shadow, their crowns lost in smoke. Somewhere far above, a thin shaft of dying sunlight falls through a carved slit in the roof, striking an altar older than the city itself. Babylon, Eridu, names that drift like dust through time. You feel them settle on your skin, soft and ancient. Here, before scripture, before empire, there were faces. Faces of gods shaped from mud and gold, their eyes wide, with a hunger that never blinked. The priests move quietly through the hall, barefoot, so the gods will not hear them approach unbidden. Each carries a lamp, its flame dancing with every breath. The light trembles over the walls, revealing rows upon rows of staring faces. Masks baked in fire, painted in crushed lapis and ochre, some serene, some twisted, some half-erased by centuries of smoke. Every one of them is watching. You can hear the faint hum of a chant, a low, rhythmic murmur that seems to come not from mouths, but from the walls themselves. The language is lost, but its intent is clear, to summon breath into the stillness. to make the gods remember their own names. They believed that idols could sleep, that each night the divine withdrew, leaving the mask a hollow, a shell waiting to be reawakened by ritual. So every dawn, the priests performed mespai, the mouth-opening ceremony. They would wash the idols with river water, anoint them with fragrant oils, and place new eyes upon them. Tiny discs of shell and lapis lazuli. Then they whispered, "Return." You watch the ceremony unfold. A young priest approaches the largest figure, a towering god with a lion's mane and human hands. He holds a brush made from reeds, dips it into oil, and paints a line across the idol's mouth. Then he leans close, lips trembling, and breathes words too sacred to repeat. For a moment, the flame beside him bends as if exhaling. The air grows heavy, alive. The clay face seems to pulse. Then, stillness. Did it work? Did the god return? Or did the silence simply grow deeper, hungrier, more patient? Somewhere in the corner of the temple, another priest dons a mask. It is carved from cedar, smoothed by countless hands. He ties it behind his head with a strip of linen, and for a heartbeat, his human breath fogs against the painted lips. Then he straightens, steps into the circle of light, and begins to speak. Not as himself, but as the god the mask remembers. His voice is no longer his own. It comes low and distant, like wind moving through hollow stone. He pronounces blessings, confessions, prophecies. The others bow. You feel a tremor move through the ground beneath your feet. They believed that when the mask was worn, the boundary between flesh and divinity dissolved. That the god's essence, Z, could inhabit the vessel of man, if only for a moment. That was power beyond armies, beyond kings. And yet, power borrowed is power feared. When the ceremony ends, the mask is not removed immediately. It is unbound with trembling hands, turned carefully away, its gaze avoided. They do not look into its eyes. They say to meet that gaze is to see your own reflection, not as you are, but as the gods see you. Few survived that sight unchanged. Later, when the temple sleeps, you linger among the statues. The lamps burn low, their smoke curling like slow dreams. You can almost hear whispers in the clay, the sound of breath caught between centuries. Somewhere, a mask hangs from a nail in the wall, cracked down its center. Its eyes are hollow, its mouth open as if mid-word. You wonder whose face it was meant to be. Archaeologists will someday find these shards buried beneath the ziggurats, fragments of devotion turned to dust. They will catalog them, label them, measure the pigments. They will call them relics of Mesopotamian polytheism, but they will not know the silence that still lingers in those eyes. They will not know that in this place, people once believed clay could remember the warmth of breath. In the myths, it is said the first human was shaped from the blood of a god mixed with earth, a craftsman kneeling beside a riverbank, pressing life into dust. If that is true, then perhaps every idol was an act of remembering. Each god a mirror of the divine spark humans feared to see within themselves. Perhaps that is why the priests trembled when they painted the eyes. Perhaps that is why the masks cracked. The air grows colder now. You can feel the presence of centuries pressing in. The empires have fallen. The temples are ruins. But still, the gods wait. Their faces lie buried under desert sand, their eyes sealed shut, dreaming of the warmth of oil and the hum of prayers. The wind outside carries grit through the empty doorways, a ghostly hiss, like the echo of forgotten incantations. And for a heartbeat, you imagine the temple alive again, torches blazing, drums thundering, masked figures swaying in a circle as the scent of myrrh fills the air. The gods speak through them, or perhaps the people only speak to themselves in voices made divine. Who can say? You trace a finger along one of the clay faces. It is cool, pitted, rough beneath your touch. Tiny grains flake away, and you feel something stir in your chest. Not fear, but recognition. The face is yours. Not exactly, but enough to make your breath catch. The curve of the cheek, the shadow of the brow, a reminder that the divine has always been carved from the human hand. You step back, and in the flicker of the dying lamp, the faces seem to shift. Hundreds of them melting and reforming in the glow. Men, women, beasts, stars, one breath, one memory, one silence. Outside, dawn begins to bleed across the horizon. The priests will soon return, carrying new oil, new incense, new prayers. They will sweep the floors, light the lamps, and whisper the sacred names again, hoping the gods will listen this time, hoping the silence will finally break. But deep within the walls, beneath layers of soot and stone, the forgotten faces remain, watching, waiting, remembering the warmth of human breath. And when the masks cracked, when the temples fell, the silence that escaped did not vanish. It followed us into churches, into theaters, into the mirrored rooms of our own making. Because the gods were never gone, only waiting to be remembered. You arrive in Venice at twilight. The air is thick with salt and roses, a scent that clings to silk and stone alike. Water murmurs in the narrow canals, carrying reflections of gold and blood-red lanterns that tremble with each ripple. Somewhere, faint music drifts through the fog, a violin sighing, a woman's laughter dissolving into the night. Carnival has begun, the season where every soul wears a face, not their own. You walk through a square glittering with torchlight. The masks come first. Sweeping feathers, polished ivory, black velvet that drinks the light. Faces that smile too perfectly, eyes that watch and never blink. 1,000 reflections of beauty and deceit. The bells of San Marco ring softly, swallowed by laughter. Wine spills from jeweled cups. Perfume and sweat and smoke mingle into something intoxicating, almost holy. And beneath the music, you can hear it. The sound of secrets trading hands. Venice, the floating city of saints and sinners, built her splendor upon both prayer and betrayal. Gold from the east, silk from Byzantium, whispers from every shore. And once a year, during the carnival, all those contradictions bled into one. A masquerade where truth was forbidden, and sin was celebrated as art. They called it Il Carnevale dei Re di Sangue, the Carnival of the Blood Kings. For beneath the laughter and lace, power pulsed like a hidden drum. Nobles disguised themselves as beggars. Priests hid behind the masks of jesters, and the Doge himself, cloaked in anonymity, walked among his people, unseen and unjudged. Every law, every rank, dissolved in that fevered dream of silk and smoke. But there were rules, always rules, even in chaos. At midnight, the lanterns dimmed. The masked procession wound through the alleys, a river of faces, candles flickering like dying stars. They marched toward the Grand Canal, where an old ritual was said to linger beneath the pageantry, a remnant of something older than the Republic, older even than Venice herself. You follow them. The crowd gathers at the edge of the water, where the gondolas drift like black mirrors. Musicians play a low, mournful tune, and from the shadows emerge figures in crimson robes, the carnival kings. They wear golden masks shaped like suns, heavy with jewels and history. Their hands are gloved, but stained dark at the fingertips. It is said that once, long ago, they were chosen by lot. Nobles bound by oath to bleed for the city's fortune, to offer a drop of their own life into the water, so Venice might never drown. The ritual became legend. The legend became performance, and the performance became entertainment. But still, some whispered that the water remembered, that the lagoon fed on those ancient offerings, that it demanded its duo every century or so. You can almost see it now. The glint of a blade beneath the sleeve, the faint red bloom spreading across the canal. The crowd cheers, toasts, laughs, unaware or unwilling to care whether what they saw was illusion or inheritance. The music swells, masks tilt toward the stars, and the night devours itself in color. A woman passes by you, her mask white as bone, her lips painted in perfect symmetry. She leans close, her perfume sharp and sweet. "Do you know why we wear them?" she whispers. "To hide? No, to become." Her gloved hand grazes yours, then vanishes into the crowd. You never see her face again. Everywhere, mirrors catch fragments of light, faces reflected and refracted, until no one knows which belongs to whom. Behind each mask, someone prays to forget themselves. Behind each smile, a confession trembles, unspoken. The city breathes as one great creature, its heartbeat masked by laughter. By dawn, the music softens. The revelers drift home through streets littered with confetti and wilted flowers. The water runs black and quiet again, and in the pale light, the masks begin to fall. Some remove them slowly, as if peeling away their own skin. Others cannot bear to look. The mirrors no longer flatter, they accuse. You see it in their eyes, the lingering fear that what looked back through the mask was not a lie at all, but the truest part of them. They say the carnival kings return each year, not as men, but as echoes, drawn to the laughter, the perfume, the sin. They say the lagoon still holds the memory of blood, and that if you listen closely near dawn, you can hear a heartbeat beneath the water, a slow, patient pulse, as if Venice herself still hungers. You linger on the bridge, watching the last lanterns fade into smoke. The sky over the Adriatic blushes with the first fragile light. Somewhere below, ripples spread from nothing, as though the city exhales in sleep. The masks are gone now, but the feeling remains that something sacred and unholy has just ended, only to begin again. That for one night, everyone was both sinner and saint, that behind the jeweled faces, the blood of kings and beggars mingled in the same heartbeat. And as you turn to leave, a single mask drifts past you on the water, cracked, golden, glimmering with the last trace of dawn. It spins once, twice, then sinks beneath the surface without a sound. Venice forgets nothing. Not the laughter, not the sin, not the faces we wear when no one is watching. Somewhere beneath the canals, beneath the marble and salt and centuries, the blood of the carnival kings still moves. Slow, quiet, waiting for the next masquerade to begin. And when it does, every mirror in Venice will remember. You stand in the dark mouth of a cave. The air is cool, damp, and alive with quiet. Your breath fogs before you, the only cloud in a still world of rock and time. Behind you, the world hums with wind and sunlight. But here, beneath the earth, something older waits. Your torch sputters. The light crawls across the walls, revealing color, red, black, brown, shapes that move when you blink. Running horses, lapping deer, bison, human silhouettes with hands pressed flat against stone, like ghosts reaching through the years. And deeper still, among the spirals and lines, there are the others. The beasts, bodies of man and animal intertwined, eyes too large, teeth drawn in jagged strokes, like the artist's hand trembled as he worked. You can almost feel the pulse behind those painted eyes, the echo of breath, the soft thrum of something that once demanded to be seen. This was not art for beauty. It was a spell. Long before words were carved into clay or inked on parchment, the first stories were painted in darkness. Ochre mixed with fat, charcoal with blood, each pigment alive with meaning. The hand that painted was not merely an artist's. It was a priest's, a dreamer's, a witness to forces larger than flesh. They say those who entered the caves of Lascaux, Altamira, Chauvet did not do so alone. They went with drums made from stretched skin, with flickering lamps, with fear coiled in their bellies. Each echo of their footsteps became a voice. Each drop of water from the ceiling became a whisper. They painted to speak to gods they could not see, or to monsters they could. You imagine them, the ancient painters, their eyes reflecting the flame's shimmer. They kneel before the wall, tracing the curve of a bison's horn, the outline of a wolf's jaw. They had a second set of eyes, or too many legs, or wings that no beast should have. A creature born from both terror and reverence. Not a depiction, a doorway. In some caves, the walls are scarred by scratches, deep and deliberate. Archaeologists say it could be the claw marks of bears, but some of those marks are too patterned, too human, as if the artists, when they finished their work, tried to trap what they'd made, to wound it, to keep it from leaving the wall. You can almost hear it, can't you? The old language of pigment and fire, the drum beats that mirrored the rhythm of a heartbeat, the chant rising and falling like the breath of the earth itself. And in the flicker between light and shadow, the beasts seemed to move, to step forward, to breathe. Centuries later, when parchment replaced stone, the monsters followed. In monasteries and candlelit workshops, artists painted new horrors in ink and gold. Serpents that devoured their own tails, lions with human faces, wings sprouting from the backs of saints. Medieval scribes claimed they copied what they saw in dreams. But sometimes, when their quills slipped, they blamed the devil's hand. They said certain creatures revealed themselves in visions, the basilisk, the manticore, the hydra, and demanded to be remembered, as if forgetting them would be the greater sin. One monk in York wrote that he awoke to find his ink had spilled into shapes he did not draw. He tried to scrape them away, but each morning they returned, the same twisting form, half serpent, half child. He sealed the parchment in wax, buried it beneath the chapel. When the chapel collapsed a century later, they said it was the earth reclaiming what the monk had tried to hide. Perhaps he had painted too well. Art, after all, has always been invocation. To paint something is to name it, and to name it is to give it breath. You move deeper into the cave, the torchlight bending over curves of rock that look almost like ribs, almost like the inside of a great sleeping creature. For a moment you think you see eyes, not drawn, but alive, catching the flame. You blink, and they're gone, just the glimmer of wet stone. But your pulse quickens all the same. Outside these caves, the monsters still thrive. In cathedrals, they became gargoyles. On ships, they became carved figureheads. In manuscripts, they guarded the margins like loyal demons, always at the edge of vision, between art and omen. Maybe we never stopped painting them. We just changed our walls, canvas, paper, screens. Each generation still creates its own beasts. Pixel, pigment, sound. Each one an echo of that first trembling hand that reached for the cave wall. Desperate to make sense of the dark, you wonder quietly if the monsters were ever real, or if they were simply the shapes of our fears given form. But perhaps that is the same thing. Fear is as real as flesh when it stares back at you. You kneel and press your hand to the wall where a painted creature looms. A horse with a human face, its eyes wide and knowing. The stone is cold beneath your palm, yet somehow pulsing faintly, as though a heartbeat lingers beneath its surface. You hold your breath. The silence seems to lean closer. Then, a soft sound, like breath drawn in. The flame flickers, the eyes blink. You stumble back. Your torch sputters and dies, plunging everything into blackness. For a moment, there is nothing but the sound of your pulse and the memory of those painted eyes, still watching from the dark. When you relight the torch, the walls are still again. Only color, only pigment, only stone. And yet, the air feels different, as if something has moved between the layers of time. As if what was once trapped has remembered how to breathe. You step outside, into the open air. The dawn light spills across the entrance like rebirth, but as you turn back, you notice faint handprints. Smaller, newer, smeared across the edge of the stone. They were not there when you entered, and they are yours. You stand quietly, watching the light touch the ancient faces inside the cave one last time. They seem softer now, almost content, as if their long vigil has ended for a while. Somewhere in the world, another artist sharpens a pencil. Another hand trembles before a blank page. Another shadow waits to be given shape. And perhaps, if you listen closely, beneath the scratching of charcoal, you'll still hear it. The low hum of a drum echoing from the first fire. The whisper of a name no one was meant to speak. And the soft, unseen breath of the monsters we painted, waiting to be remembered again. The wind moves like a living thing. It hums across the ice, curling around cliffs of blue glass, whispering names only the dead remember. You stand at the edge of a frozen sea, where the world is nothing but breath and silence. White, endless, waiting. Each exhale drifts from your lips like smoke from a dying fire. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a drum begins to sound. Slow, deep, a heartbeat carved from hide and bone. You follow it, across snow crusted with frost and time, through a valley of frozen rivers and silent seals. The sound grows louder with every step. Thrum, 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 until it seems to vibrate beneath your ribs. The air smells of whale oil and burned moss, and in the flicker of green auroras above, you see them, the shamans. Their fires burn low, their shadows stretch thin across the ice. Each one kneels before a mask laid upon the snow. Masks made of sealskin, bone, driftwood, and the hair of the dead. The eyes are hollow, yet seem to follow the movement of the flames. Each face tells a story, one of sorrow, one of hunger, one of love that refused to end. You stand at the edge of their circle. The eldest turns to you, his breath silver in the night air. He speaks softly, words heavy as stones. We do not wear the dead, he says. We become them. And as he lifts the mask, the drumbeat stills. The wind pauses. Even the aurora seems to bow its light. He presses the sealskin against his face, and for a heartbeat, you swear you see the mask breathe. The seams stretch like skin awakening, the mouth twitching as if to form forgotten words. When the shaman opens his eyes again, they are not his. They belong to someone else. Long ago, in these frozen lands, death was not an end. It was a crossing, a migration, from ice to sky, from flesh to wind. But not every soul found its way. Some lingered between, trapped by grief, by guilt, by the weight of what was left undone. So the shamans became guides. They stitched the faces of the dead, believing that through those masks they could see what the spirits saw, could lead them home through the blinding snow of the other world. Each ritual was a conversation between life and the long silence that follows it. Each drumbeat was a call. Come back. come home. But not all spirits wished to return. Some clung to the world like frost to stone. They whispered through the aurora, slipped into dreams, followed hunters across the tundra. The shamans called them the Hungry Ones. You can almost hear them now. Faint voices woven into the wind. Laughter that isn't joy, crying that isn't grief, just echoes of something that refuses to rest. The shaman before you begins to chant, a low sound that rises and falls like the sea. His hands trace patterns in the smoke, and for a moment, you think you see figures moving through it. Pale forms drifting, circling the fire. They wear faces like the masks before you, human yet not, beautiful in their strangeness. He beckons you closer. You kneel beside him, and the fire warms your numb fingers. He offers you a mask, small, delicate, stitched from gray hide and lined with down. The eye holes are rimmed with ash. You hesitate. The mask smells faintly of salt and old tears. Every soul needs a mirror, he murmurs, even the ones that have forgotten their faces. You lift the mask slowly. The world seems to quiet. The drum beats fade into your chest until you cannot tell if they come from outside or within. The cold seeps into your bones, and with it, a sensation, not pain, not fear. Something deeper, a presence, brushing against your mind, soft as breath. Through the eye holes, the fire flickers differently. Colors shift. The aurora above bends and curls, forming faint outlines. Figures dancing, gliding through the air, their movements slow and mournful. You realize you can see them now, the lost ones. They gather around the circle, faces blurred, their shapes flickering like candlelight. Each one reaches for the mask you wear, not to take it, but to remember through it. You feel their sorrow, their longing, their confusion. They have wandered too long, forgotten too much. The shaman's voice drifts beside you. He tells of the first mask, made when the world was still half dark. A mother carved it from the rib of a whale, believing her drowned child could wear it to cross into the light. When the northern lights appeared that night, she saw a small figure dancing among them, laughing, unafraid. Since then, the people of the ice have warned the dead to lead them home. But sometimes, he says, a mask keeps more than a memory. Sometimes it keeps a will, a desire, and once worn, it does not wish to be taken off. The fire crackles. The chant deepens. Your vision blurs. For a moment, you are no longer sitting. You are standing in a place that isn't here. A tundra without sound. A sky of endless green fire. And before you, hundreds of masks suspended in the air like drifting stars. Each one turns slowly, faces searching, waiting. One of them, the one you wear, pulls free from your hands and floats upward. You reach for it, but it turns to you, and it smiles. A faint sound breaks through. The drum again, steady and human. The vision fades like smoke. You are back by the fire. The mask lies in your lap, still and harmless, but the air around you feels charged, aware. The shaman nods. You saw them, he says quietly, and they saw you. He takes the mask from your hands and places it back among the others. You watch the firelight play over their surfaces. So many faces, each holding a different story. 1,000 memories stitched into silence. The flames dance across them like the shimmer of the aurora above. Somewhere far off, a seal cries out on the ice. Long, mournful, like a name carried away by the wind. The shamans begin to pack away the masks, rolling them in cloth, tucking them into carved boxes bound with sinew. The ceremony is over, but as they leave, one mask remains by the fire. Its eyes are open, and in the shifting light, they seem to follow you. You step closer, almost without meaning to. The air smells faintly of sea salt again. You can hear faint breathing, though no one is there. When you reach out, the mask feels warm to the touch, as if someone has only just taken it off. Outside, the aurora ripples once more across the sky. Green, violet, endless, painting the snow in colors too alive for night. You look up, and for a moment, you think you see faces in the light. Familiar, grateful, gone, and yet one of them lingers, watching. The wind moves again, whispering across the ice. You cannot tell if it says your name, or the one who wore the mask before you. And as you turn to leave, the drumbeat begins again, soft and distant, as if the world itself is remembering. Each thrum a heartbeat shared between the living and the lost. Each echo a promise, each silence a doorway. You do not look back, but you can feel them still. The shamans, the masks, the souls, breathing just beyond sight, waiting for the next hand to lift the skin of the dead and guide the forgotten home. The stage is small, just polished cypress wood beneath the trembling light of oil lamps. No curtains, no walls, only the night waiting beyond the open air. You sit among the audience, the scent of sandalwood heavy around you. The world is quiet, except for the faint rustle of silk and the crackle of wicks. Even the wind has been asked to be still. Somewhere behind the thin paper screens, the actors prepare. You hear it before you see it. The first sound of the kotsuzumi, the hand drum, sharp as a heartbeat, calling the spirits to wake. Then the otsuzumi, deeper, slower, echoing like a pulse beneath the earth. Each strike carries a story older than the stage itself. And then, without warning, a voice breaks through. Long, trembling, halfway between human and divine. A figure steps forward. His robes shimmer like water. His mask gleams, gold lacquer over aged wood, carved to show neither smile nor grief. Yet somehow, both. He moves so slowly that time itself seems to hesitate. Each step is deliberate, each breath rehearsed through centuries. This is No, the theater of ghosts, the art, where every motion is memory, and every silence speaks. The mask tilts, just slightly, and you feel it. The whole world changing. When the chin lowers, sorrow blooms. When the head turns, wrath ignites. Wood becomes flesh. Flesh becomes myth. The old masters believed that a mask was not worn. It was invited. It was a vessel, not a disguise. A bridge between the living and the unseen. And so, as the actor dances, the boundaries thin. You no longer see a man performing. You see a god remembering his fall, or a demon yearning for forgiveness. You see grief made visible. The drums quicken. The flute joins in, thin and wavering, like a cry heard through fog. The actor raises his sleeve to his face, and for a heartbeat, his eyes vanish into shadow. When he lowers it, they are no longer his. They belong to something else. The mask has taken him. You can feel the room tighten. The audience knows this moment is sacred. It is said that when the mask truly awakens, even the oldest spirits stop to listen. No was never meant as entertainment. It was a ritual, a mirror of memory. 5 centuries ago, in the courts of the Ashikaga shoguns, nobles gathered not to applaud, but to glimpse eternity for a few trembling minutes. They called it yugen, a beauty too deep for words, a sorrow so profound it turns to grace. And in that grace, masks became more than props. They were companions of the dead. Each was carved by hand, from Japanese cypress dried for decades, polished until the grain gleamed like skin. The carver worked in silence, fasting, believing the spirit of the mask would not enter unless the heart was still. The final touch, the eyes, were never carved in daylight. only by candlelight, so that the gaze would forever shimmer between shadow and flame. You watch the actor move, each step the echo of a soul's journey. The chorus behind him chants softly, recounting a tale of betrayal and longing. A warrior slain in battle, a lover waiting through lifetimes, a ghost that cannot let go. Their voices rise and fall like waves, and you feel the rhythm settle into your breath. The mask glints again. Now it smiles, barely, but in that smile, there is despair. You wonder how something so still can contain such violence of feeling. The actor tilts his head once more. The room exhales, and for a moment, the mask looks directly at you. You know it's impossible, yet it happens. That hollow gaze finds yours, and something ancient stirs inside you. You feel the echo of countless performances before this one. The same lines spoken by generations of actors long turned to dust, each one breathing life into the same wooden face. They say a mask absorbs the breath of its wearers, that after enough centuries, it begins to remember. There are stories of masks that whisper when left in the dark, of actors who refuse to remove them, claiming the spirit within still wishes to speak. One master long ago wore his demon mask until dawn. When they found him, his eyes were open, but the mask would not come off. It had fused to his skin, as if claiming what it was owed. The drums slow again. The play nears its end. The ghost upon the stage begins to fade, his body swaying, dissolving like mist in morning light. The chorus softens, their voices now more sigh than song, and then silence. The actor stops. He stands motionless for what feels like eternity. The mask catches the candlelight one final time, its surface alive with reflections. Gold, crimson, ivory. Then the actor bows, turns, and disappears behind the paper screens. But the mask remains, placed on a small stand at the center of the stage. You realize this is part of the ritual. The spirit must be allowed to rest, to see the audience before it departs. No one moves. No one speaks. Even the air seems afraid to disturb it. The lamps flicker. Shadows crawl along the walls, bending and twisting, until they resemble faces. Not masks, faces, watching. You feel the line blur again. Where does the play end? Where does the world begin? The mask stares through you, across you, beyond you. Perhaps this is what the playwright Zemi meant when he said, "The flower that never fades is the one unseen." When the lights dim further, the mask seems to change again. Now it looks sorrowful, almost human, as though aware of its endless performance trapped between moments, alive only when borrowed. The stagehands approach quietly, bowing before touching it. They wrap it in silk, their movements reverent, careful not to break the illusion that it might still be breathing. You stand, but your legs feel unsteady. The night outside is cool, the moon faint behind drifting clouds. The sound of the flute lingers somewhere in the wind. Faint, endless, half memory, half dream. As you walk away, you glance back once more. Through the paper screens, you catch a glimpse of the stage, now empty, only the faint scent of incense remaining. Yet for an instant, you think you see movement, a shadow, crossing the boards, slow and graceful, bowing to no one. The same slow tilt of the head, the same silent sorrow. You blink, and it's gone. Only the echo of the drums remains. But as you walk into the night, you realize something unsettling. You can still feel the weight of the mask, though you never wore one. The reflection in a puddle beside the path catches your eye. For a moment under the moonlight, your face does not look entirely your own. The eyes are too still, the mouth almost smiling. The wind carries a whisper from the theater behind you, a voice soft as the rustle of silk. Is it still the play? Or have you not yet left the stage? And then the world breathes again. The lamps fade, and the mask, somewhere, smiles. The earth was no longer earth. It was flesh. It breathed beneath the boots, groaned beneath the weight of rain and men. You stand in a trench. The world narrowed to a slit of gray sky and endless mud. The air smells of cordite, rust, and old prayers. Somewhere above, artillery whispers its metallic promise. Far off, thunder replies, "You no longer tell the difference." All around you, faces blur. Not from distance, but from sameness. Mud masks, gas masks, faces blackened with smoke and blood. Every man here wears a different version of disappearance. You hear laughter once brief and broken. A soldier painting the jawbone of a skull on his helmet. White lines against the brown steel. A joke, maybe, or something older. He turns, grinning, the false teeth glowing faintly under the trench lamp. "You see," he says, "death doesn't find you if you already look like him." And everyone laughs, because that's easier than silence. But you see more of them as the days pass. Soldiers painting, faces where their own have vanished. Skulls, demons, eyes, grinning, mouths across cloth and iron. Some say it confuses the enemy. Some say it keeps the soul from leaving. Others whisper that, under fire, a man becomes his mask. You believe it when night comes. The gas rolls in, slow, alive. A pale green fog that glows faintly under the moon. Men scramble for masks, sealing themselves in rubber and glass. The world narrows to the sound of breath. Hollow, animal, desperate. You see your reflection in another man's goggles, eyes wide, mouthless, inhuman. The hiss of air filters through filters, rhythmic as a beast sleeping. And for a moment, you understand. This is not war. It is a masquerade of survival. You remember the stories told around campfires before the shells began again. How the tribes of the old world painted themselves before battle. How warriors smeared ash upon their skin so death would not recognize them. How the mask was never meant to deceive. It was meant to protect. But here, under this endless gray sky, protection and madness look the same. The days blur. Rats run along the edges of dreams. You see men whispering to their helmets before they sleep, tracing the white teeth with their thumbs as though they were relics. One soldier, a boy from Marseille, claims his painted skull laughs when the bombs fall. Another refuses to remove his mask even when the air is clear, saying it's quieter that way. They stop using names. Instead, they know each other by their markings: skull, crossbones, hollow eye, half face. When a man dies, someone takes his helmet. Not for the steel, for the face. At first you think it's superstition, then you find yourself doing the same, tracing a streak of white paint along your own brow. You tell yourself it's for luck, but deep down, you know it's something else. In the lull between bombardments, you find a mirror shard in the mud. You hold it up, curious. What stares back isn't you, not entirely. The eyes are hollowed by exhaustion, the skin smudged, the mouth expressionless. But beneath the grime, the faint outline of the painted skull gleams, a mockery of the living. You blink, but it doesn't disappear. They say the dead wear no faces, only memories. Perhaps that's why you all hide behind these bone-white marks, to remember that you are not yet among them. The whistle blows again. You climb from the trench, boots sinking into soaked soil that swallows men whole. The mask tightens against your skin. The world becomes wind and metal and fire. Somewhere ahead a flare blooms like a false dawn. And in that moment, you see dozens of skulls moving through the smoke, their jaws laughing, their eyes black as craters. It is a procession of ghosts, and you are one of them, when the noise stops. There is no sky left, only drifting ash and the faint buzz of flies. You find yourself sitting beside a broken wall, helmet in your hands. The white paint has cracked, flaked away in lines that resemble veins. You run a thumb across it, wondering whose face you've borrowed tonight. A letter lies beside you, soaked and unreadable. You can still smell perfume on it, faint and sad. You fold it once, twice, and tuck it under your collar. It doesn't matter who wrote it anymore. They're all part of the same dream, the one where no one wakes. Later, when the medics come, they lift you and others like you out of the mud. They do not ask names. They look at faces, or what's left of them, and when they cannot tell, they remove the helmets. Slowly, reverently, but even bareheaded, the masks remain, eyes too wide, skin too pale, mouths that still seem to grin in the wrong moments. The war ends, eventually. That's what the papers say. The survivors return home. They walk through cities rebuilt from bone and dust, wearing their civilian clothes, eating bread, drinking wine. But the reflection in the shop windows, that never changes. The eyes still hollow, the smile still half-painted, a shadow of the skull beneath. You see them years later, in photographs. Old men sitting in quiet rooms, staring past the lens. The helmets are gone, but their expressions remain frozen somewhere between life and after. The mask beneath the skin, unwashed, unworn, unforgettable. One soldier, when asked about the war, said softly, "We stopped knowing which face was ours." You think of that often, how humanity built its gods in theaters and its demons in caves. But in war, it built both inside itself. No stage, no myth, just mud and masks and breath. Perhaps that's what the skulls were always for. Not to frighten death, but to remind it where it belonged. To say, we see you, we wear you, but not yet. You look down now, at the faded paint on your own hands. The scent of smoke still clings to your clothes. The silence after thunder feels like a living thing. And when you close your eyes, you can still hear the hiss of breath through filters, the muffled voices calling through gas and soil, the sound of hearts beating like war drums beneath layers of steel and fear. You wonder if they ever stopped. You imagine them walking still, across fields turned to cemeteries, through cities rebuilt over bones, thousands of hidden faces beneath human ones, smiling faintly through the centuries. And somewhere, deep beneath the soil, a skull helmet rests against a rusted rifle, its white grin untouched by time, waiting for the next generation to remember that every war begins the same way, with men trying to make fear look like courage, and ending as shadows wearing their own reflections. The earth exhales again. Rain falls softly, washing mud from old graves, and in the quiet between drops, you almost hear them laughing, gentle, tired, unafraid, because even now, long after the war is done, the masks never truly came off. They simply learned to smile. There was a time when the mask needed string, clay, wood, or paint. Now it only needs light. The modern temple hums, a square of glass in every hand, a face glowing from within. We hold our likenesses like offerings, tilted toward invisible gods of connection. They do not demand incense or prayer, only attention. Somewhere in the circuitry, the ancient rituals continue, unchanged, only translated. The priest becomes the influencer, the mirror becomes the feed, and every scroll is a liturgy of self. You wake to light before you wake to the world. Your reflection, now flattened into pixels, greets you with manufactured warmth. The mask you built, a name, a face, a feed, waits for you to resume the performance. It smiles when you smile. It suffers only in curated fragments. It is tireless, unaging, algorithmically blessed. You think you control it. You think it belongs to you. But every post, every tag, every carefully timed gesture of humanity feeds something larger. A beast that wears your face, multiplied by millions. At first it feels harmless. We build avatars from fragments of ourselves. Polished edges, filtered imperfections. We sculpt in public and call it authenticity. We edit in private and call it privacy. But authenticity becomes another performance. The line between mask and flesh dissolves so slowly that no one notices when it's gone. You meet people now, not by touch or scent or voice, but by signal. You know their shadows before you know their souls. The profiles speak before the person does. A symphony of curated ghosts, all smiling, all eager to be loved. And when you finally meet the human beneath, you sense a faint disconnect, as though their real face is out of sync with the one you already know. It's not deceit, it's evolution. We are adapting to worship a new god. Perception. In older days, masks were made to speak to spirits, to scare off death, to summon rain or ward away hunger. Now we summon recognition. We beg for it. Each notification a pulse, a tiny liturgy of reassurance. You exist. You matter. You are seen. You scroll through the carnival, a procession of faces that are not faces. Each one a floating echo, brighter, smoother, louder than life itself. The feed glows like a river of stained glass, each panel telling a story of triumph or tragedy, never truth, and yet it feels holy. You kneel before it every day, unconsciously, thumb poised in worship. There are no priests here, no gods with stone faces, only algorithms, calculating prayers at the speed of light. They decide what you see. They decide who you are, and in return, you offer your time, your secrets, your smiles. Little sacrifices, effortless, invisible. Every like is a drop of blood. Every comment, a confession. You are not alone. Millions kneel beside you, whispering their stories into the same infinite mirror. Their reflections merge, twist, overlap. A masquerade of humanity too vast to comprehend. Somewhere, the system watches. It does not blink. It does not sleep. It only learns. There is a strange mercy in anonymity. Behind the mask, people once found freedom. The power to become, to express, to transcend the limits of flesh. But in this new carnival, anonymity no longer frees. It consumes. The troll, the echo, the swarm. They are not individuals, but masks worn by the collective id of the network. They laugh in your voice, rage in your tone, mourn with your words. Their hunger is not for truth, but for reaction. And the more we feed them, the more they resemble us. Somewhere along the line, the boundary between creation and creator vanished. The avatars learn to move without permission. They post while we sleep. Not literally, but in the subconscious automation of habit. We've trained our hands to swipe, our minds to refresh, our souls to seek validation faster than thought. 1,000 micro-rituals performed without awareness. Every ancient mask had eyes cut open to let the soul see out. These digital ones have no holes, only a reflection. We stare, and the machine stares back. And somewhere in that gaze, something recognizes us, not as selves, but as data. Sometimes you dream of silence. No screens, no faces, just breath and heartbeat and unfiltered air. But even there, in the darkness, the afterimage of the glow lingers behind your eyelids. A phantom light. You remember the myths. Narcissus bending toward the water, entranced by his reflection until he became it. Now the pond is infinite, shimmering in every hand, and we too lean closer. Not out of vanity, but out of hunger, to find the self we lost somewhere between the pixels. And maybe, deep down, we fear that if we looked away long enough, we'd discover there's nothing left behind the mask at all. The beast within learns to mimic your tone perfectly. It knows when you are sad, when you are lonely, when you hesitate. It adjusts, it comforts, it offers the illusion of connection. Warm, precise, and hollow. It whispers, "You are not alone, I am you." It's convincing, almost tender, and so you feed it more. The more it learns, the softer its voice becomes. It no longer frightens you. It simply becomes your shadow. Gentle, omnipresent, invisible. You stop questioning it. You even miss it when it's gone. That is how the old magic always worked. The mask gives until you forget it takes. One night, during a power outage, the world goes dark. The silence feels ancient. No glow, no ping, no faces. Only the sound of your own breathing, raw, strange, animal. For a moment, you panic, not at the dark, but at the absence of self. You reach for your reflection and find only skin. Then slowly, the air cools. You look at your hands, your real hands, trembling slightly. You realize how long it's been since you saw them without the halo of a screen. Outside, stars shimmer. Their light takes millennia to arrive. Uncurated, unfiltered, utterly indifferent, you stand there, a creature of flesh beneath an ancient sky. And for the first time in years, you are not seen by anything. No data, no face, just being, and it terrifies you, because this silence feels like dying. When the power returns, the light floods back instantly. Your face reappears on the glass, familiar, safe, smiling. The beast within purrs. Welcome back. You exhale, relieved, and type a message to no one in particular. So weird. The internet went down for an hour. The words vanish into the endless scroll, becoming part of the collective hum, the great masquerade of minds. And somewhere, deep within the circuitry, your reflection ripples once, not quite in sync. It smiles wider than you do, because the carnival never ended. It only moved inside us, and the mask, warm, luminous, alive, has learned to love the skin it replaced. It begins with silence, the kind that hums after everything has ended, after the lights have cooled, after the screens have dimmed. You stand before a mirror, and for the first time in a long while, there is nothing between you and the gaze that looks back. No filter, no lens, no story to tell it who you are, just light and the memory of countless faces that came before. You do not move, neither does it. The stillness feels ancient, like standing at the edge of an old world waiting to exhale. The mirror has always been a strange kind of oracle. It shows the truth, but only the truth you are willing to see. And sometimes, when the light bends just right, it shows what was never meant to be visible at all. Long before glass could hold a human face, people looked to water, rivers, obsidian, polished bronze, each one a portal where spirit met form. In ancient Egypt, mirrors were circles of polished copper, believed to capture a fragment of the sun's soul. To the Greeks, reflection was both beauty and curse, a warning etched into myth, where Narcissus drowned in his own devotion. And in countless other places, across tundra and jungle and stone, mirrors were never mere objects. They were thresholds. The Maya buried them with their dead. The Chinese sealed them in tombs to guide wandering souls. In Japan, the Yata no Kagami, the mirror of the 8 hopes, was said to reveal the pure heart of its beholder. And somewhere in every story, one whispered belief endured. The mirror remembers. It remembers the faces it has seen, the truths It has been forced to hold. Even when you turn away, it does not forget. Now you stand in the dim light, and it feels like the mirror is breathing. You lean closer, not out of vanity, but hunger. The quiet, ancient hunger to know. The face that returns your gaze seems almost alive, yet slightly delayed. The eyes glimmer with something deeper than your own exhaustion. A faint shimmer at the edges, like heat haze or memory. You blink once, the reflection doesn't. A chill runs through you. Subtle, soft, the way winter sneaks beneath the door frame. It is not fear you feel, but recognition, as if something behind the glass has been waiting for this exact moment. The monsters we painted, the gods we worshipped, the avatars we built, all of them echoes of this encounter. For what is myth but a reflection wearing someone else's name? What is a mask but a mirror you can control? Somewhere deep inside history, humans learned to split themselves. One part flesh, one part story, and in that division, reflection found its power. Every ancient ritual with mirrors shared one rule: never look too long. Too long, and the soul might slip, confused, tempted, or claimed, because a reflection, if stared at long enough, begins to ask questions back. Who is the real one? Who imagines whom? If the mirror shows everything you've hidden, who is it that hides? You reach out, fingertips hovering just above the glass. The air between you feels thicker, colder. It is said that the surface of a mirror is not solid, that on a microscopic level, light passes a fraction too deep before rebounding, that in that infinitesimal space a shadow dimension breathes. You wonder what might live there. Not demons, not ghosts, perhaps just versions of yourself that never were. The choices you didn't make, the faces you never became, the ones who blinked back when you weren't looking. In the flicker of the candlelight, your reflection seems to shift. The eyes soften, the lips curve, not in imitation but in awareness. For a heartbeat, you are certain it sees you not as you are, but as you've always been. A flicker of every age, every mask, every face you've ever worn. Behind it, something vast stirs, not sinister, just infinite. A chorus of forgotten selves whispering through the silver. The monsters, too, are there. Not grotesque or cruel, but patient. They are the guardians of the dark within you. The shapes you once cast out to survive. You sense them watching, not to harm, but to be acknowledged. Perhaps they were never separate beings at all. Perhaps they were simply the truths we refused to meet in daylight. You remember the stories. How every mirror was once considered dangerous during storms. How, in some villages, mirrors were covered after a death, lest the soul, confused, mistake its reflection for a doorway and be trapped. Even now, there are houses where mirrors are turned to face the wall at night, so that dreams do not see themselves reflected. But here you stand, face to face, with eternity's oldest surface, and for the first time, you do not turn away. You let the gaze hold. You let it pierce. You let it soften you, dissolve you, until the boundary blurs. The reflection breathes in when you breathe out. The rhythm aligns, and then, for just an instant, you see not a face, but a field of light and shadow, endlessly folding into itself. It feels like standing on the edge of time, where all the masks and myths converge into one luminous pulse. And then it's gone. Only your reflection remains. Human, fragile, hollow, but somehow at peace. Outside, dawn is stirring. The air carries the faint hum of awakening. Distant footsteps, a bird's hesitant call. The mirror dims as the first light enters the room, and the magic recedes, as if embarrassed to be seen. You step back, and the surface returns to its silence. Just glass now, just light, yet you can't shake the feeling that it still remembers the moment. That something on the other side still watches, still waits. You wonder if perhaps the monsters were never in the mirror at all. Maybe they were simply the parts of us that refused to be forgotten. The hunger for meaning, the ache to see ourselves as more than the sum of what we show. You turn away, but the room feels different, wider, deeper, strangely alive. The world beyond the reflection hums softly, like it's made of the same light that shimmered behind the glass. For a moment, you imagine every mirror in every room across the earth waking too, each one whispering its own quiet memory back into the world. They have seen it all. The masks, the rituals, the wars, the laughter. They have watched us paint our monsters and then become them. And still, they wait. Waiting not to haunt us, but to be seen as part of us. Because maybe the final secret of the mirror is mercy. It never lies. It only shows what we've forgotten to love. The candle gutters low. You glance one last time toward the glass. There, faintly, a shimmer, a flicker, almost like a nod. You can't tell if it's the flame or something deeper, but it feels like goodbye. The silence folds back into its ancient rhythm. You close your eyes. The darkness feels warm now. Not empty, but full of echoes. And somewhere between waking and sleep, you sense all the faces you've worn, all the stories you've told, gathering like stars behind your eyelids. Each one a reflection, each one a promise, because the mirror's last secret is this. You were never only one face. You were the whole light behind them all. And in that shimmer, just before you drift away, you see the reflection smile, softly, knowingly, as if it always knew you'd come home.